Louis Hyman, in your book, Borrow, you say that debt is the American way. Has it always been this way?
Well, people haven't always been able to borrow like they can today. People in the 19th century could borrow for their businesses, but they certainly couldn't borrow for their houses or their cars.
Is it just a part of the capitalistic cycle, fear and greed and debt and getting out of debt? Is that just the way it works?
It wouldn't be such a problem, I think, if we borrowed to make businesses work. Instead, we borrow to make houses and get cars and things that don't produce anything. Part of the problem here is that we're not afraid enough about borrowing.
Well, is it just the American way to be optimistic? People borrow and they say, things are going to be better in the future, so I'll pay it back then.
Sure, we trust people who are going to lend us money. But the question is, how do we get those lenders not to lend to us as consumers, but instead to lend to small and medium-sized businesses that desperately need that money?
Well, why don't you answer that question?
Well, in the book, I talk about how we need to securitize small loans and medium-sized loans. We've made it too easy to lend to consumers, which has totally thrown off the scales.
Hasn't securitization been the big problem which got us into the trouble in the housing market in the first place?
Securitization wasn't the trouble. The problem was the underlying mortgages. The problem was that we securitized the wrong things. If we securitize things that produce value, like businesses, I think we'll be able to restore the flow of capital that all those big banks are sitting on to the people who really need it, who make America work.
Well, because of the housing crisis, has the attitude towards debt changed in America? People are just sending back their keys in so-called jingle mail.
That's right. I mean, I think Americans are wondering, well, why should I pay it back if the big companies don't have to pay it back? And certainly lots of Americans are trying to pull back on their expenses. But the truth of the matter is that people are desperate. Their wages haven't grown in 40 years, and they might be losing their jobs. So they're trying to find ways to borrow if they can, but they're less able to do so.
Well, it's not just the banks who are getting bailed out, it's countries, not just companies. So when we look at Greece and we look at Portugal and the problems in Europe, could that be us because of borrowing?
Well, I think there's a possibility there. Congress obviously needs to get their act together. But I think the big scary thing is if those interest rates go up, all those adjustable rate mortgages are going to come home. And suddenly people aren't going to be able to pay off their houses, their cars, or even their credit cards.